It's fun. I love this sport. I gave it my all. It's fucking crazy. I had a blast, and thank you to all the fans and everyone.
All right, folks, it's over. Anthony Joshua knocks out Jake Paul in the 6th round of their fight on Netflix.
That would align with a ring that size, a negative style, as we mentioned. It really comes down to the fan interest. Jake Paul is on a 2-fight stretch coming into this one, which really put his reputation on the line.
Boxing professionals have been reacting to Jake Paul's potential retirement after a surprising knockout loss to Anthony Joshua. Paul has suggested that once he accomplishes all his goals in boxing, he intends to retire and shift his focus to a career in the NFL, marking a significant change in his athletic path.
After this, like legitimately, just to play like safety and just deck people. No, I swear to God, I'm about to bring hella ratings to whatever team I'm on.
Where would you want to go if you can go to any team?
Shit, the Browns.
So
I can run a 4.34.
He's the fastest man on the planet.
I got hands. I have the size, the power. I can knock people out with one punch. So why can't I play? Why can't I play free safety?
Do you think you coming into the NFL would be the equivalent of like when an NFL player says, "I'm going to try to box now"?
No, because I played football my whole life. At the end of the day, it's coverage, knowing your plays, and then just being fast. And
the boxing world has been abuzz following Jake Paul's shocking knockout loss, with reactions ranging from critical to cautionary. Former user IB offered an explosive take on Paul's future, bluntly stating, "Jake Paul knocked out. His career's over. This bum is done." Meanwhile, Duke McKenzie weighed in on the fight, emphasizing how undersized Jake would compare to Anthony Joshua. He noted that even when Paul tried to land punches, he struggled to reach AJ effectively, underscoring the clear mismatch. McKenzie strongly advised that Jake should put an end to this path, warning that continuing in such high-risk fights could be both dangerous and damaging to his boxing reputation.
Throw a shot, he would lunge in, jump in, and because he was so short, he'd miss. And then he ended up stumbling over his feet and falling over. Sometimes in that fight, he reminded me of, have you seen that Kung Fu film called The Drunken Master? Except for he wasn't a master. As a Kung Fu guy walks around and normally kicks people's ass, but he looks drunk all the time. That's what that fight reminded me of. It was such a poor showing from Jake Paul. You know, I mean, it's a well-documented fact. There was a lot of money on the line. And I'm sure you, Max, as I would, and anybody else in the street would fight Anthony Joshua for 75 million. You just would. And the same thing would happen. And even after the fight, now the fight's over, you're 75 million.
Ex-user Chelsea expressed relief over Jake Paul's shocking loss, saying, "I hardly come here anymore, but I'm so glad Jake Paul lost. Maybe now he'll shut up." Former UFC champion Michael Bisping called the fight a masterclass, noting how AJ's powerful uppercuts and combinations left Jake with no escape. Despite trying to run, Paul took serious damage, exposing his limitations against top-tier opponents. Bisping stressed that Jake needs full recovery before considering any future fights.
In my humble opinion, because I'm a big Anthony Joshua fan. Of course, I've been a supporter for the longest time. A rather lackluster, unmotivated Anthony Joshua that didn't look like he was being particularly nasty, right? Yeah, a lot of the time he was out of range, and okay, it is hard to land a shot on someone that's backing up and moving away the whole time. And there was a lot of times where he had him in the corner and he could have thrown a shot. And sometimes he was telegraphing his shots. And anytime he did go in to throw a punch, as I said before, Jake Paul would shoot in and turn it into a wrestling match. And even when he wasn't shooting in, he was clinching a lot. This is boxing. It's not MMA, as we know. The referee should have done a much better job of getting in there and separating them much, much faster. As I say, it was the 6th round. I think it was the 4th round he got dropped twice. In the 5th round, he got through it. In the 6th round, caught him with the jab, then a glancing right hook. He goes down, and that was that. That was all she wrote, right? I did a live. There was about 9,000 people watching at one point. Nobody was particularly enjoying the matchup. Listen, okay? I respect both men. I respect anyone really that steps into the ring, okay? And certainly going up against Anthony Joshua, that was a tall task, okay? You know, metaphorically and figuratively, right? It was a tall task. It was a big job. It was a tough opponent. It was a mismatch. And it was, right? Jake Paul never worried Anthony Joshua once. He never rung his bell. He never caused any damage. He never had him worried. He never did anything. It wasn't a fight. It was a display of how long can Jake Paul last? Can he run away long enough to...
Ex-user Cabral reported Jake Paul's shocking injury, saying, Jake Paul has gone to hospital with a suspected broken jaw. Bro was forced into early retirement. Sean Jones reacted to the fight, noting it wasn't rigged and highlighting that AJ didn't even use full power. He emphasized the severity of Jake's injury, crediting the authenticity of the bout and showing the harsh reality of facing a world-class boxer like Joshua.
People who were fully convinced that this fight was 100% rigged. Like, people said that this is a clown show, and they said, this is rigged, this is scripted. Okay, so now Joshua's won. What are you going to say to that? So was it scripted that Joshua was going to win? You see this whole narrative about, oh, the fight's rigged, the fight's scripted. That's illegal to do, and Joshua is not going to tarnish his legacy by doing something like that. Would Jake Paul do something like that? Maybe so, yeah, but not someone like Joshua. Come on. Now, to be fair, 80% of that fight was looking a little bit dodgy. It was looking like Joshua wasn't throwing as much as he usually would. Jake Paul was landing on Joshua. He landed a really strong jab that knocked Joshua's head back. He landed a couple of decent overhand rights. In fact, Jake was kind of the first one who landed the biggest shots of the fight. But this is the thing, anyone who fights, even on like a low-level basis, or who just does some sparring, will understand that when you fight someone who has got nowhere near the skill level as you, sometimes it can be a little bit harder because they're awkward, they're doing stuff that you don't really expect. You know, sometimes when you fight beginners, it's a bloody nightmare. Just like, you know, awkward movements. You're like, what are they throwing? You don't expect certain shots to come that do come. And then you fight someone who's a little bit more traditionally sound with the fundamentals, and it's almost a little bit easier. And I think that's what we've seen here in this fight. AJ has had an easier time with some fighters who've got like 40 professional fights with 20 KOs on the record than he did with Jake Paul. Why is that? Oh, because it's scripted. It's scripted. No, it's not scripted. It's just because Jake Paul is awkward and he's a beginner in relation to Joshua. So Joshua just took some time to figure them out. You could see Joshua was getting a little bit frustrated in that 4th and 5th round, but then he started.
User Mir71 warned Jake Paul to step away, posting, "Do everyone a favor and don't return." Analyst Liam Goff added that Jake faces serious trouble after his brutal loss to Anthony Joshua, with severe injuries like a broken jaw forcing him to focus on recovery. Goff stressed that until he fully heals, any boxing plans are on hold, making his future in the sport uncertain.
Had that face-off with Tank Davis. He was looking at a guy who was, 5-6 inches shorter than him and probably 60-70 pounds lighter, right? So he was probably looking at that thinking, yeah, you're a legit boxer. Yeah, you hit very hard, but look how much bigger I am to you. Contrast that to him looking up at Anthony Joshua and realizing, oh my God, look at the size of you in comparison to me. That's a bit different. And I think with Jake Paul, it really dawned on him what's going on. But Jake Paul has to keep face. He has to stay essentially in that persona that, you know, I am the man, I'm going to win this, trying to sell a dream to a casual, a bit like what Eddie Hearn does, trying to sell the casual audience that this is going to be a real fight, quote unquote. It was a real fight. It's not scripted, but you know what I mean, that he's really in this fight. That's what he was trying to do. And he did that well up until fight night. Boy, did he fail miserably on fight night. Again, I give him credit. He doesn't need to box. He can choose an easier profession, as I say. But to go in and to run around the ring like that, that was something else entirely. I mean, he was doing his best Roadrunner impression in there. He was running around that ring from the minute that bell went. That was all he was trying to do. And listen, AJ's performance, I can critique it from a defensive point of view, that he got hit with some silly shots that he probably shouldn't have been hit with. He was trying to cut the ring off in a ring as big as that. It's not easy. All right. And furthermore, if you're in there with an opponent who purely just wants to survive, he's no interest in winning the fight. He just wants to go to rounds. People, you could be one of the most you could be a prime Mike Tyson, Bone Crusher Smith, prime example. People never talk about that fight with Mike Tyson because they say, oh yeah.
After his recent injury, Jake Paul updated fans on X, thanking his medical team and sharing that surgery went smoothly, though he faces pain, stiffness, and a week on liquids. Wade commented on the fight, noting Jake focused on potential money fights rather than defending belts and could face stars like Canelo or even Tyson Fury in the future. Despite being outmatched by AJ in skill, size, and power, Wade respected Jake for taking the challenge, calling the fight a thrilling spectacle for boxing fans.
And I don't think he fights a ton in 2026. I think it'll be a very slow year for him. Look for those two guys as the main two he would fight. I wish it was Tommy Fury, but I doubt it. On the other side, I want to see him get back into boxing specifically, get back into committing to this, because there is a massive, massive fight that awaits him in Tyson Fury. It's far past time that it happened. If they don't do it now, they never will. And yeah, man, I don't really know what else to say on this fight. As far as, what happened in there tonight, I know on Twitter people are going to want their money back, or they're going to call it a bad fight or a sloppy fight or whatever. And then there's going to be people, celebrating Jake's downfall. That was always going to be the case. Of course, the first time he gets rocked, dropped, and stopped, people are going to celebrate like it's the 4th of July, or it's their birthday, or like it's Christmas. So yeah, expect that, but I won't do that here. I won't, because I respect the hell out of him for going and doing it, and there's not any normal people on earth that would have done it. I don't care if you say, oh.
Ex-user Zane reacted with concern to Jake Paul's injury, posting, Jake Paul announces he has a double jaw broken, snapped, and may never be able to fight again. Reports confirm Jake's jaw break is severe, likely sidelining him for at least a year. Experts stress extensive rest and rehab are needed, putting all fighting plans on hold. Jake has thanked his medical team and acknowledged the pain, making full recovery the priority and marking a major pause in his boxing career.
I thought that the Anthony Joshua-Jake Paul fight was going to be rigged. These x-rays definitely tell a different story. So on December 19th of 2025, as I'm sure most of you are probably aware, Jake Paul fought the two-time unified heavyweight champion Anthony Joshua at the Cassia Center in Miami, Florida, which was streamed exclusively on Netflix as part of a major boxing event that was promoted by Paul's Most Valuable Promotions. The ending result was Anthony Joshua won by knockout in the 6th round after Jake Paul was knocked down 4 times in total, twice in the 5th round and twice in the 6th round. Anthony Joshua landed 48 punches on Jake Paul compared to Jake Paul landing about 16 on Anthony Joshua. And this is the second professional loss of Jake Paul's fighting career, dropping his record down to 12-2. Now, Jake Paul ended up suffering a double broken jaw during the fight and was taken to the hospital afterward, skipping the post-fight press conference, probably because he probably couldn't talk. But in his in-ring interview, he said, "That was crazy. I had a blast. I think my jaw is broke." Anyway, as far as his professional fighting career is concerned, as of December 20th of 2025, he doesn't have any new opponents that have been announced, and it's expected that his jaw injury is going to take 4 to 6 weeks to recover from. Regardless of how you feel about him, that dude fought a 2-time heavyweight champion and survived. And I think we can all agree that regardless of how you feel,
analysts Brian Campbell and Shaquille Majiri broke down Jake Paul's recent fight on CBS Sports, noting his focus on elusiveness and movement helped him last longer than expected. They questioned his ability to contend for a cruiserweight title without more aggressive engagement and suggested his popularity, not skill, drives his career. Potential matchups like KSI or Tommy Fury could be lucrative, while his defensive style and preference for a large ring indicate entertainment currently outweighs competitive ambition.